This week has seen the Nigerian elections postponed to February the 23rd and March the 11th for respective seats, plus a European Union observer report stating that the elections in Zimbabwe last July fell short on fairness. This is Africa Focus. Here's a peek into the stories set for today.
As the Nigerian elections are postponed, we take a closer look at the profile of two leading candidates. Child trafficking in West Africa. Gabon struggles to end the entrenched practice. And in Algeria, find out how the humble cactus is bringing hope to the North African nation.
I'm Lenny Rashid, and our sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Now, before we get into the main stories, let's take a look at the news that made the headlines around the continent.
Hours before polls were due to be open, the chairman of Nigeria's Electoral Commission said that the presidential election, which was due to be held on the 16th of February, has been postponed and will now be held on the 23rd of February. While addressing journalists in the early hours of Saturday, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) chairman Mahmoud Yakubu said the delay was needed to hold a free and fair election. Yakubu said proceeding as previously scheduled was not feasible and the delay was needed for logistical reasons. President Muhammadu Buhari faces a tight election context against the main opposition candidate, businessman and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, in Africa's largest economy, top oil producer and most populous nation. The country's presidential election in 2011 and 2015 were also delayed over logistical and security issues. Funerals and prayers were held in Cairo and Sharqiya on Sunday to mourn the death of an officer and soldiers killed in a deadly attack on the Egyptian military in Sinai. The Egyptian military said that several military personnel were killed in North Sinai, in which 7 militants were also killed. The breakdown of military casualties was not immediately clear. However, 2 security sources told Reuters that some of the injuries were serious. The Islamic State later claimed responsibility for the death of at least 15 Egyptian troops, revising an earlier figure of 20 killed in its news agency, Amaq. Security forces launched a campaign a year ago against Islamist militants focused on Egypt's Sinai Peninsula and have killed several hundred militants since then. Security forces launched a campaign a year ago against Islamist militants focused on Egypt's Sinai Peninsula and have killed several hundred militants since then. Since 2013, militants have repeatedly targeted security checkpoints and Egypt's Christian minority. Zimbabwean rescuers pulled the bodies of at least 22 illegal gold miners out of shafts west of Harare that were flooded earlier in the week and rescued 8 more alive. Looking dazed and covered in mud, the miners were whisked away by officials past cheering crowds. Anxious relatives and other miners have camped out of the mining site as they awaited news on their beloved ones and colleagues, some expressing frustrations and lack of information. Some expressing frustration at the lack of information they were getting. The accident involving 70 miners in Battlefield, 175 kilometers west of the capital, happened last Tuesday night and has shown a light on the risks run by illegal gold miners who last year contributed a large part of Zimbabwe's record 33-ton bullion output. The government has declared this incident a disaster. Battlefield and surrounding areas are rich in gold deposits and popular with artisanal miners, known locally as makorokoza or hustlers, who use picks and shovels and generator-powered water pumps. The makeshift shafts and tunnels dotted around a clearing, some 8 kilometers from the main dirt road, can easily collapse in the rainy season when the ground is soft. Guinea-Bissau will hold legislative elections in March, 4 months after a vote was originally scheduled, in an attempt to defuse a long-running crisis. The former Portuguese colony, one of the world's poorest countries, has been locked in a political standoff since President José Maria Vaz sacked his premier in 2015. Under a deal brokered by West African Regional Bloc (ECOWAS) in April, a consensus Prime Minister Aristide Gomes was named with the task of steering the country to a vote, but the ballot was delayed by difficulties in drawing up an electoral list. The UN and African neighbors have been urging Guinea-Bissau to hold the vote, pressing the government to finally set an election date. Protesters marched in Malawi's central district of Dedza to voice their concern after a 14-year-old albino boy was kidnapped and is thought to have been murdered. Albino body parts are much sought after in the country and are used in witchcraft rituals. Albinism is a hereditary genetic condition which causes a total absence of pigmentation on the skin, hair, and eyes.
At 76, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is eyeing a second term as head of the most populous country on the African continent. Now, 4 years ago, he represented hope for change, but his presidency, marked by an economic recession and an inability to restore security in the country, has cast doubt over his re-election. But while he may go down in history as Nigeria's first opposition candidate to defeat an incumbent, his first term was dominated by questions about his fitness to govern.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is making a second bid for the presidency, after a first term marked by poor health and even rumours that he died. He's campaigning on his promises to tackle corruption, boost the economy, and end the Boko Haram jihadist insurgency in the country's northeast.
We are committed to deepening the work we started this first term, such that nations' assets and resources continue to be organized and utilized to do good for the common man.
But his track record tells a different story. Boko Haram, after having been initially put on the back foot, is still carrying out deadly attacks. On the economy, a damaging recession linked to the drop in global oil prices has fueled inflation and driven unemployment rates to record highs. Despite initial support in his northern stronghold, voters are increasingly divided.
I will vote for Buhari because he has improved security. Before, we couldn't even go to school.
The people are suffering. You can see that the economy has collapsed. There's high inflation and life was easier before Buhari arrived.
The 76-year-old former general was the first opposition candidate to win power by the ballot box 4 years ago. But as Nigeria's problems deepen, victory is far from certain.
Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is the main challenger to incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari in the upcoming election. His January trip to Washington had a simple goal and claims that he couldn't go to the United States without being arrested. The 72-year-old former Vice President has long been linked to 2 U.S. bribery and money laundering scandals and rumored to have been the subject of a visa ban. But who exactly is Atiku Abubakar? Let's find out.
Well-known figure in the world of business and politics, Atiku Abubakar is the leading opposition candidate in this month's general election in Nigeria. His campaign has focused on the nation's economy and security issues, but as a former vice president from 1997 to 2007, he's also hoping to highlight his political experience.
I felt there was need, for somebody like me to step out, experience in politics, experience in governance, experience in business, to try and restore and bring back the country.
Since winning the People's Democratic Party primaries in 2018, Atiku Abubakar has been campaigning around the nation. Just like current President Muhammadu Buhari, Abubakar is a Muslim from the north of Nigeria, but the two candidates, who are also both in their 70s, diverge when it comes to economic policy.
So Buhari is positioning himself as statist, pro-big government and all of that, while Atiku Abubakar on the other side is positioning himself as pro-business, pro-private enterprise.
Following a career in the Nigerian Customs Service, Abubakar made his fortune investing in various sectors, like agriculture and the oil industry, winning him the support of the financial elite. But an endorsement from big business is a double-edged sword, with many of his detractors viewing him as corrupt.
At a transit center on the outskirts of the Gabonese capital, Libreville, many children are hiding a traumatic past. The youngsters at the facility are victims of human trafficking. Gabon is one of 9 West African nations where the United Nations says the centuries-old exploitation of child labor remains entrenched. Recruitment for domestic work appears to be the most prevalent form, but other types of labor include working in plantations, small trade, begging, and soliciting.
At this transit centre on the outskirts of the Gabonese capital Libreville, many children are hiding a traumatic past. The youngsters here are victims of human trafficking. Snatched from other African countries, most endured long and perilous journeys being brought to Gabon.
I was trafficked through Nigeria to get to Gabon. I spent 3 months there. Then I came by canoe to Gabon, to my owner's house.
Once in Gabon, the trafficked girls are sold to work without pay, often as maids with abusive families.
She didn't pay me, she didn't do anything for me. I don't want to go back. Once, when she saw that 100 francs were missing, that the money was gone, she beat me. She hit me with shoes and with a piece of wood.
Like Adama and Tsunami, hundreds of children are brought illegally to Gabon, a relatively rich Central African country. Rescued children are brought to this transit centre before being sent back home, yet on their return, there is no guarantee that they won't fall back into the hands of traffickers.
Child trafficking here is part of an international organised crime network, and it has a large presence across West and Central Africa. So it's not always easy to follow traffickers and children going from one country to another, crossing through another country I won't name, before arriving in Gabon.
Some children are even forced into prostitution, and police say that their efforts to combat this are hampered by a recent relaxation of border crossings in Central Africa, and the lack of legal pressure exerted by judges on traffickers.
As we take a breather, here's what's coming up after the break.
Coming up, Dino Country. Find out how the Rainbow Nation has become a fossil hunter's paradise.
Touch that dial. Africa Focus. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Africa Focus. In case you just joined us, today's sign language interpreter is Tracy Dorcas. Close to 200 police officers recruited by the Hirshabelle State Police Department underwent a colorful passing out parade upon completion of a 3-month course. Hirshabelle State is a semi-autonomous region of Somalia which was established at the end of 2016. Now, just to put this into context, since 1991, Somalia has been plagued with conflict and insecurity remains one of the biggest challenges of the country on the Horn of Africa.
These police officers are the first batch of 800 new police recruits being absorbed into the state's police force to maintain law and order in Somalia's youngest federal state. The ceremony was held in Jowhar, the administrative capital of Hirshabelle State.
I congratulate you for the great achievement you have made, that is completing the training. You have just started the first phase of education and acquiring knowledge. You are joining a police force with a reputable history of dedication, discipline, and selfless service to its citizens. I expect you to be humble, disciplined, and treat people with respect.
The passing out parade was attended by top federal and Hirshabelle state officials, among them the Federal Minister of Internal Security, Mohammed Abubakar Islo, the Police Commissioner of the Somali Police Force, General Bashir Abdi Mohammed, and Hirshabelle State Police Commissioner Colonel Hassan Diiso.
It is your responsibility as a police force and a police service to ensure that you exercise professionalism, observe the fundamental issues of human rights, issues of rule of law and constitutionalism when you carry out your duties as police officers.
They now have a demanding mission of securing Hirshabelle as they are mandated to maintain law and order. The training was conducted by AMISOM Police and funded by the European Union.
You're the first batch of officers of the State Police of Hirshabelle. You are a role model. The rest of the recruits will follow your footsteps and emulate you. On your shoulders is the arduous task of securing Hirshabelle. You are required to deal with people justly and always observe the rule of law.
Somali Police Commissioner General Bashir Abdi Mohammed urged the officers to maintain high levels of discipline in their work.
Ahead of you lie years of expectations of serving and protecting the citizens of Great Somalia, which I am confident that you will perform with selfless devotion as the Constitution mandates you to do.
I am very happy today for successfully completing this training. It is a historic day for us, and I'm ready to defend our country and sacrifice our lives in service of our country.
The 3-month comprehensive training focused on different aspects of policing, including crime prevention and public order management. The police recruits were also taught international humanitarian law and international human rights law, which are critical in their everyday duties.
In recent years, South Africa has become a top destination for dinosaur hunters. Experts say the southern tip of the African continent is an ideal place to study the transition between Triassic and Jurassic periods, when the mass extinction events happened and shaped the evolution of the planet. Due to its geology and climate, the Rainbow Nation is an incredibly rich source of fossils, with recent discoveries bringing whole new species to light. The country is becoming known as a paradise for paleontologists.
These archaeologists are on a short hike, but it could take them back 200 million years into the past. The team from Wits University is hunting for previously unknown species. They began after a student of Professor Jonah Chouanière found a fossil near the border with Lesotho in 2015.
She just found a few bones coming out. We started to excavate it, and we brought it back to the lab, and it turned out to be the hip of a species we'd never seen before.
The new discovery was one of the earliest relatives of modern crocodiles, which were the dominant carnivores on Earth at the time.
Imagine a crocodile crossed with a lion. Sort of very large, quadrupedal legs right under the body, with these massive big jaws. Like I said, a very intimidating animal.
This prehistoric crocodile had never been found before in South Africa. The discovery has added to the country's reputation as a paleo paradise and caused excitement among a new generation of African scientists.
We have all these amazing things in our country, and we can show the world all the things we have. And I would like to eventually be able to tell the full story of, just the evolution of crocs.
The fossils must be properly studied, and it can take years for a new species to be fully accepted by the scientific community. Such a breakthrough is a major achievement for any paleontologist.
It's not every day we describe a new species of dinosaur, and I mean, it's obviously like one of the most fun parts of the job is saying, here's something that science didn't know about yesterday.
Chouanière and his team have already discovered that massive sauropod dinosaurs evolved to walk on 4 legs earlier than previously thought. Over 2/3 of South Africa's landmass is thought to hold fossils. Paleontologists will be busy here for years to come, trying to shed new light on the giants that once roamed the earth.
For generations, Algerians have barely eked out a living growing prickly pear fruits, but thanks to the cactus's newfound virtues, their lives are steadily improving. Around 80% of Algeria, Africa's largest country, is arid or semi-arid, providing an ideal terrain for farming prickly pears. Algeria is a country of 40 million, where half the population is under 30, with 1 in 3 young people unemployed. Many dream of traveling to Europe to find a job and improve their standards of living.
For generations, Algerians like the Gueldasmi family have barely eked out a living growing prickly pear fruits, but thanks to the cactus' newfound virtues, their lives are steadily improving. Scientific reports indicate that the Opuntia species of the prickly pears, which thrives in arid regions like Algeria's northern Sidi Frej, contains a plethora of virtues. Everything from the cactus, once considered sacred by the ancient Aztecs, can be transformed to yield nutritional and medicinal benefits except for prickly spines.
The first year we started here, and when we reached the production of 300 liters of oil, and after the analysis of the oil proved the success of the product, we started the construction of a manufacturing plant for this cooperative straight away.
The greeny, spiny discs known as cladodes are used for fodder, while their tender inner flesh is a star of the cuisine of Mexico, where the cactus originated and figures on its national flag. Oil extracted from the seeds of fruit has antioxidant benefits and is used in cosmetics for its anti-aging properties, besides being rich in vitamin C, calcium and magnesium.
One can find large numbers of the prickly pear products in the area of Sidi Frejom, especially in the Souk Ahraz province, where the farmers have a surplus of production. They manage to sell 10 to 15% and the rest goes to waste. So we decided to create this manufacturing plant to exploit the surplus production.
The flowers of the cactus go into making herbal tea, while the pulp of the red fruit is turned into juice, vinegar, jams and even sorbets. A 2017 study by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization FAO concluded prickly pears could be the answer to much of the world's food security woes and prevent soil erosion.
With regards to the farmers, they have started to become aware of the importance of cultivating this product as an economic alternative in the dry and semi-arid regions.
The fruit must be handled carefully to avoid being pricked by the sharp spines, and until recently it was harvested for its tasty sweet flesh, which only fetched a pittance of 10 dinars, an equivalent of 0.08 US cents or 0.07 euro cents a piece at the local market. Since 2013, however, all that has changed with the creation of a cooperative of farmers, scientists and traders in Souk Ahraz, with help from Mexico to exploit the market prickly pear byproducts.
Here, before women didn't work. Nowadays, they got used to it. My wife takes the bucket and goes to collect the prickly pears to make a bit of money. Even little 12-year-old girls go to collect prickly pears after school. It makes them some pocket money and it can also help their parents.
A small factory was built in 2015 and oil was produced in small quantities before reaching 300 liters in 2017 and 1,000 liters in 2018.
In Algeria, it's a first for us. We hope to be able to find real partners very soon, to put in place a real French-Algerian team. There's a great potential here that we didn't think we would find. We are very happy and satisfied with this exchange.
The cooperative is hoping to increase the output 7-fold by the end of this year, thanks to a new and bigger factory which opened at the end of last year. 1 ton of grains is needed to produce 1 liter of oil, which can fetch more than 2,000 euros or dollars in Europe. Algeria's green gold is exported to France, Germany and Qatar, and plans are being made to sell it to the United States as well. Although Algeria, where most of the fertile land is free of pesticides, has no organic certification body, oil from Sidi Frej obtained an organic label from the European agencies and is sold as such abroad.
On this show, we love hearing from you, so make sure you get interactive with us on our various social media pages. From the entire team here on Africa Focus, thank you for watching. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.